All right, so welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking into something pretty wild. Donald Trump's, suggestions about Canada becoming like the 51st state. You sent us some really interesting sources about this, like a Reddit discussion from
Out Canada?
Yeah, just a ton of opinions. And then also a CTV News article that kind of looks into the political side of things.
Right.
Seems like you're looking for some clarity, like what's going on here, and we're here to do just that.
Absolutely.
So we're going to sift through all the info, identify what's important, what are the main perspectives, and really help you understand what's really going on.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating topic, and it goes beyond just like a simple comment that he made.
Right.
There's a pattern here, and understanding that pattern is, I think, really important.
Okay, so let's start with what Trump actually said. He posted on Truth Social, "Many Canadians want Canada to become the 51st state. I think it is a great idea. 51st state."
With 3 exclamation
They have
points.
3 exclamation points.
Yeah.
And he even said that the U.S. subsidizes Canada
Right.
to the tune of over $100 million a year.
Right.
So is this like a real proposition? Is this like some kind of tactic? What's going on here?
Well, that's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And the fact that it is a question is part of the strategy, right?
Okay.
He uses humor and repetition to normalize extreme ideas.
Okay.
Think about like his campaign slogans. Really catchy. They were repeated constantly.
Yeah.
And often with kind of a wink,
Yeah.
Like, is he serious or is he not?
Yeah.
And it's this thing, some people call it a Schrodinger's joke.
Okay.
Is he serious? Is he not?
Yeah.
That ambiguity allows the idea to just kind of like linger in people's minds.
So it's almost like planting a seed, and it's like, whether it grows into a joke or something serious, it doesn't really matter because now the idea is out there.
Exactly.
Right. And speaking of seeds, that Reddit thread is like just full of reactions, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
So many different.
A whole spectrum.
Yeah, some people are taking it as a genuine threat. Other people are laughing it off.
Totally.
Some people are saying Canada needs to get nukes.
Right.
It's like this whole crash course in Canadian anxieties.
It's
pretty amazing.
I think it really highlights the complexities of like the Canadian psyche, right? And their relationship with the U.S.
Yeah.
There's this fierce pride in their independence and their identity, right?
Yeah.
But also this awareness of the economic and political ties to their, more powerful neighbor.
Right.
So you see comments like, nukes. We need nukes.
Right.
That reflects that anxiety. But then right next to it, you'll see, ask them to find it on a map.
Yeah.
Which is much more like a dismissive and humorous take.
Yeah. And then there are comments that seem to really kind of like get at what's going on. Like he's not joking. He's trying to normalize the thought of annexing us. And this is aimed at Trudeau. Those two have history.
Right.
So it seems like some Canadians are kind of picking up on the deeper implications of what Trump is saying, whether he's serious or not.
And that's where I think the political context is really crucial.
Okay.
The CTV News article that you sent details some of these recent Canada-U.S. tensions, proposed tariffs, Trudeau's meeting with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, threats over like energy resources, even Elon Musk getting involved.
Wow.
It paints this picture of a relationship that's already kind of strained.
Okay.
So when you layer on top of that Trump's annexation comments, it's understandable why Canadians might be feeling a little uneasy.
All right, so we've got Trump like repeatedly saying this annexation idea. We've got Canadians reacting with kind of this mix of humor and fear and like defiance.
Yeah.
And we've got this like simmering political tension between the two countries. It's starting to feel like a political thriller. But before we, go too far down that road, let's go back to that subsidy claim. He said the U.S. subsidizes Canada to the tune of over $100,000 a year.
Right.
That's a lot of money, right?
It is a lot of money, and it's not accurate.
Okay.
So to understand why we need to talk about trade surpluses, imagine like 2 friends are trading baseball cards. One friend ends up with more valuable cards than they traded away.
Okay.
That friend has a trade surplus.
Got it.
In this case, the U.S. actually runs a trade deficit with Canada.
Oh, okay.
Meaning they buy more goods and services from Canada than they sell to Canada.
So it's the U.S. that's kind of in the red here.
Exactly.
Not Canada.
It completely contradicts that claim.
So how realistic is this annexation idea? Is this a real threat?
Yeah.
Or is this like total fantasy?
That's the question.
I mean, the Reddit thread was pretty divided.
It was.
Some users were really worried, pointing to, Putin's rhetoric before the invasion of Ukraine as an example of how, words can lead to actions.
Right.
But other people were just like, this is just Trump being Trump. Typical
Well,
all talk, no action.
Yeah.
Where do you fall on all of this?
Well, annexing another country, especially a G7 nation like Canada, it's not a walk in the park.
Right.
There's international laws, there's treaties, potential economic consequences to consider.
Right.
It's not something that happens overnight or without significant global pushback.
Okay, so it's not just as simple as Trump waking up one morning and being like,
No.
Canada, you're part of the U.S. now.
Not quite.
But even if annexation isn't really a possibility, the fact that he keeps saying this stuff has to have some sort of impact.
Absolutely.
Right.
Words have power.
Yeah.
And this kind of rhetoric can definitely create uncertainty.
Okay.
And so discord between the countries. And that's something I think we need to unpack a little bit further.
Okay, so that's a great segue into the next part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
Let's take a closer look at the potential impact of these statements, even if annexation isn't actually on the table.
Sounds good.
So.
Right. I think even if we set aside the likelihood of actual annexation, there are still some real-world consequences to this kind of rhetoric.
Right, like damage to diplomacy and trade.
Yeah, exactly.
And how would that affect, everyday Canadians?
Yeah, imagine you're a Canadian business owner and you rely on exporting goods to the U.S.
Okay.
Suddenly there's this talk of tariffs and trade wars.
Yeah.
All stemming from this political, posturing.
Right.
Creates so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
How do you plan for the future? How do you invest in your business?
Right.
Can you even keep your employees on the payroll?
It's got to be really unsettling.
Absolutely.
And, it's not just about business, right?
Oh, of course not.
What about families with members on both sides of the border?
Yeah.
Or Canadians that travel to the U.S. for work, or even just to visit?
Absolutely.
Those personal connections could be affected, too.
The free flow of people and goods across the border is something that a lot of people take for granted.
Yeah.
But if this rhetoric leads to, increased border security, stricter visa requirements, even just a general sense of unease between the two countries, it has a ripple effect on countless lives.
It's kind of like that feeling you get when, when two friends have a falling out.
Oh, yeah.
And even if you're not directly involved, the tension is just palpable.
Yeah.
And it affects everybody.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And remember that Reddit thread that we talked about earlier? A lot of Canadians express this feeling of being in an abusive relationship with the U.S.
Right.
And so this kind of rhetoric, even if it's not intended to be malicious, can really reinforce those feelings of vulnerability and power imbalance.
It makes you kind of question the whole foundation of the relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah. If a friend or a partner keeps making jokes about taking your things or controlling your life, at some point you have to wonder if they even respect you.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's where this whole conversation about Canadian identity comes in.
Right.
This situation forces Canadians to confront what it actually means to be Canadian, especially in the shadow of this, dominant neighbor.
Right.
Does it mean striving to maintain a distinct culture, a set of values?
Yeah.
Or is it about finding ways to coexist and collaborate while still protecting your own interests?
Those are some big questions.
They're big questions.
So while we're here in this hypothetical headspace, let's just entertain a thought experiment for a second. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Canada did become the 51st state.
Okay.
What would that actually look like?
Right.
Would we all be forced to eat apple pie? Would we have to start saying, yeah?
Well, first of all, the process itself would be so complex.
Right.
We're talking negotiations, treaties, potentially even constitutional amendments on both sides.
Wow.
The logistics of merging two distinct governments, legal systems, economies, it's staggering.
It's mind-blowing. It's not as simple as just adding a star to the flag.
No.
What about healthcare?
Yeah.
Would Canadians have to give up their universal system?
Right.
And what about our currency? What happens to the loonie?
Those are all valid questions.
Yeah.
And there's really no easy answer.
Right.
It's very likely to be this long transition period.
Yeah.
Filled with compromises and adjustments.
I bet there would be some serious cultural clashes, too.
Oh, for sure.
Like, would Canadians have to adopt, like, the American-style Thanksgiving?
Uh-huh.
Would Tim Hortons become, like, the next Dunkin' Donuts?
Well, those are the, lighter side of things.
Yeah.
But the cultural integration would be a very interesting process.
Yeah.
Language, customs, social norms.
Right.
There'd be a lot to navigate.
It's making my head spin just thinking about it.
It's a lot.
So with all of this, like, complexity and potential pitfalls,
Yeah.
why does this annexation idea keep coming up?
That's a good question.
Is there something more to it than just Trump trying to get a rise out of people?
I think there are a few possible explanations.
Okay. Oh?
Some people argue it's a way for him to appeal to his base,
Mm-hmm.
Tapping into a certain segment of the American population that views the U.S. as this, dominant force on the world stage.
Right.
Others suggest it's a tactic to distract from domestic issues.
Okay.
Or to create a common enemy and rally support.
So it's like a magician, right? Like sleight of hand.
You
If you're
missed it.
focused on the annexation,
You miss what else is happening.
you might miss something else that's happening over here.
Exactly.
So it's really important to be aware of the context and look at it from multiple perspectives.
Absolutely.
So where do we go from here?
Well.
We've covered a lot.
Yeah.
Trump's statements, Canadian reactions, the political context, the whole complexity of annexation,
Right.
even the potential impact on everyday life.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
Is there a way to tie all of this together? Like, offer some guidance for our listeners.
Absolutely. I think the most important takeaway here is knowledge is power.
Okay.
By understanding the nuances of this situation, the historical context, the potential ramifications, you're better equipped to form your own informed opinion.
Right.
And navigate this complex world that we live in.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's not about giving into fear or burying our heads in the sand.
No.
It's about being informed, engaged, and proactive.
Exactly.
But before we wrap up, I want to kind of circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Right.
The idea of like flipping the script.
Okay.
Instead of Canada becoming part of the U.S., what if we imagined the U.S. becoming part of Canada?
The great Canadian takeover.
Haha, exactly. What would that look like?
Yeah.
Would Americans have to start saying A?
Right.
Would they have to like apologize for everything?
I mean, it's purely hypothetical, but it's a fun thought experiment.
Yeah.
Imagine the U.S. adopting the Canadian healthcare system, embracing more relaxed gun laws, maybe even, dare I say it, switching to the metrics system.
Okay, that last one might be a bit of a stretch. But I see your point.
It's about challenging assumptions.
Yeah.
And looking at things from a different perspective.
Absolutely.
It encourages us to think critically about our own values and systems.
Right.
And to consider the potential benefits of cross-border collaboration and exchange.
It's like that saying, walk a mile in someone else's shoes.
Exactly.
By putting ourselves in the other's position, we might actually gain a deeper understanding and appreciation for both sides.
I think that's very true.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe by considering this kind of hypothetical scenario, we can identify some common ground and find new ways to strengthen the relationship rather than tear it apart.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a refreshing way to end this deep dive on kind of like a note of possibility.
Absolutely.
But before we let our listener go,
Yeah.
we always like to leave them with something to think about.
Of course.
Like a thought-provoking question to ponder based on, what we've talked about.
All right. So, listener, today's question goes right to the heart of this whole annexation issue.
Yeah, okay.
We want you to imagine, just for a moment,
Yeah.
that Canada did become the 51st state.
I know. It's a big what if.
It is.
But stick with us here.
Yeah, think about your life, your job, your family, your community.
Yeah.
How would this monumental shift impact you personally?
Would it be all doom and gloom?
Yeah.
Or could there be some like unexpected silver linings?
Right.
What would be the biggest benefits and drawbacks specifically for you?
Exactly. We're not looking for right or wrong answers here.
Right.
Just some genuine, thoughtful reflection.
So take some time to really consider this hypothetical scenario.
Yeah.
Maybe jot down your thoughts, talk it over with a friend, maybe even post your reflections on our social media.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
We want to know what you think.
And remember, the more we understand each other's perspectives, the better equipped we are to navigate all of this.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We hope you found this exploration informative, insightful, and maybe even a little bit entertaining.
As always, we encourage you to stay curious, keep learning, and never stop questioning.
Until next time, happy diving. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to just talk about annexation like as a concept.
Right.
But when you try to picture what it would actually mean for your life,
Yeah.
it becomes a lot more real.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
To move beyond just like the headlines and the rhetoric.
Yeah.
And actually try and grapple with, how complicated this really is.
Right. So to wrap up our deep dive today, we want to leave you with that challenge.
Yeah.
If Canada were to become the 51st state,
Right.
what would be the biggest benefits and drawbacks for you personally?
Would you welcome the change? Would you resist it?
Yeah.
How would it affect, your job, your healthcare, your sense of identity?
Right. And there's no right or wrong answer. We
Yeah.
just want you to, keep thinking critically about it and engaging with these important questions.
Absolutely. And if you're willing to share your thoughts, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
You can find us on social media or send us an email.
Yeah. We love a good discussion.
Always up for it.
So thanks for joining us for this deep dive into, this kind of complicated world of politics and international relations.
It can be confusing.
It can be, yeah.
But, staying informed and engaged is the best way to deal with it.
Absolutely, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Happy diving, everyone.